OKC goes wild in the third quarter again. Where the heck was Julius Randle for the Wolves? It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Let's go.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
Welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA Game Night. Every game, every night. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On Fridays, I'm your co-host, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter, and the host of the Locked On Pelicans podcast.
And I'm John Corrales, at John_Corrales on Twitter, and host of the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Thank you for making a Locked On NBA Game Night your first listen today and every day. We are here Monday through Monday, 7 days a week, covering every single game in the playoffs across the association until a champion is crowned. And we're probably going to keep doing shows even after that here. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcast and join us on YouTube as well. We got another game to cover here. Oh, wait, nope. Today's episode of Locked On NBA Game Night is brought to you by our good friends at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. John, we're back with another game. Oklahoma City winning 118-103 over the Minnesota Timberwolves. We'll focus on OKC to start. We'll get into the Timberwolves in the second part of the show. And then the Nuggets making Adelman official here. Good move or not, we'll debate it here. Today's episode of Locked On NBA Game Night. What you think about the Thunder, John?
Thunder are pretty good. That's my expert analysis. The Thunder are a good team that may possibly win the NBA championship this year. Typical OKC game in a lot of ways. 14 turnovers for 22 points. Forced by the Thunder. That's what they do. They dominate the third quarter again. They force you out of your comfort zone, and they force you to do things like bench Julius Randle for an entire fourth quarter because he was struggling, which actually was not the worst idea considering.
They made it competitive at least at one point.
Right. But
not close, but competitive.
Competitive. They had their moments. But from the OKC perspective, I mean, obviously SGA, MVP, got the award, very nice moment. But this is their defense. It's swarming. It just, guys were turning the ball over on the catch, just like catch the ball down low, all of a sudden, whap, ball's out of your hands. They're going the other way. Critical moments, like with about just under 4 minutes to go, the Timberwolves have made their run to cut it to, I believe, 10, and they just Thunder there for another turnover, get the and one, kind of salt this thing away. They're just always there to make life difficult for you, and you got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander doing what he did in this game, and the defense doing what it did. It's hard to win.
No, I'm with you. It was really that third quarter where it got busted wide open. They won that frame 35-21. They had a little bit of a stretch. They closed quarters exceptionally well, particularly halves. And you saw that kind of surge there with Shai hitting a big three, basically sending them into half with like all of the momentum. And what was a close game all of a sudden was an 8-point lead for the Thunder. And then on top of that, right, like they just come out and blitz the heck out of you in the third quarter, and that one was a little bit closer, and you saw Minnesota keep it close, but by the end, halfway through the third, you'd see the Oklahoma City Thunder really kind of gaining their foothold and starting to put this game away. And you mentioned a lot of things, right? It's Shai being Shai, 11 points in the third quarter. Chet Holmgren just being a matchup nightmare for multiple, not just the Wolves, but everybody there. He had 7. And then for the Timberwolves, 5 turnovers in that quarter. They were 0 for 6 from 3, 6 of just for 20 from the field in that one. It's like the wheels fell off, but that's what OKC does to you.
Yeah. And the thing about the Thunder is they are so well built that there aren't many places that you can attack. You really can't attack them. I think Minnesota, there's a Mike Conley issue going on here with the Thunder attacking him. It's hard to defend with Conley on the floor because they just keep attacking him, but you can't take him off the floor because then the offense stalls and that just makes things very, very difficult for Minnesota. It just goes to show like the construction of this team where it's a relentlessness from the Thunder. So, in that third quarter, you don't get anything from anybody. Anthony Edwards is a -14. He plays all 12 minutes. Conley gave them nothing. You get nothing off the bench. Really just a bunch of zeros. 0 of 6 from 3. The thing about the Timberwolves and what OKC has been able to do is the 3-point shooting, even the corner 3-pointers, they're just giving up the right shots to the right guys. And even these corner 3-pointers that should be falling aren't. So it's just a tough combination of things for Minnesota where they're not able to get anything going in OKC.
No, and look, with that crowd and how loud it is, and you can hear that kind of coming through the screen, just watching it on TV, the atmosphere in there sounds pretty raucous is the word I think I would use for it. It sounds,
it's a good one.
It's got like a college kind of atmosphere, like a big college game atmosphere in there. It just seems like that's a place that like I genuinely want to go and experience a game at now. That's like on the list when normally that wouldn't be on the list, but when they just get going like that, they're so difficult to stop, right? Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, hoisting the MVP award before the game here, 38 points. He also had 8 assists, 3 rebounds in this. He was fantastic. 13 of 15 from the line. He got there. That's what he's going to do. And when you get that Chet Holmgren game of 22 points, when you have Jalen Williams, who really stepped up in the second half for them too, after being kind of quiet, like once their other guys than Shai came alive and came online, they just started to run away with it.
I think last time we talked, it was the OKC Denver game 6, right? Where
game 6,
Jalen Williams had struggled.
On the road.
And so, we'll see what he does on the road here, but this is like this is a lot of typical OKC stuff with the Jalen Williams 12 of 20 performance, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, all that stuff. There's nothing you can do there, but also unsung heroes like Alex Caruso has had a great first 2 games. Defensively, he fouled out of this one, but he's been a defensive menace, and he's hits a few shots. You get Cason Wallace hitting a couple of 3-pointers for you and giving you a plus 10 in 28 minutes. That type of production is super important to kind of counteract or offset some of what the Timberwolves are doing. We'll get to the Timberwolves stuff in a second here, but the Thunder just when they're playing like this, you can see them. Like when people said the last series was the NBA Finals, this is what they're talking about. This type of stuff. They have counters to when the other team makes a run. They just ramp up their defense, and especially in the playoffs, you have a little extra leeway to grab a little bit and push a little bit. That they're just. It's an unstoppable defense that if it's allowed to do a little bit more like it's been, the way they swarm, the way they play, the energy, it's relentless. And they've been the best team in the NBA all season long, and they look like it.
And when you have just what is it, 6? How many turnovers they have in this game?
8.
They had 6 turnovers in this game. Like that's so difficult to try and overcome when you can't get some of those easy fast break points, run in transition and anything like that. Like just incredible performance from them tonight.
Yeah. I mean, look, that you look at the margins, I listen to Joe Mazzulla, I hear margins all the time. The Thunder got up 90 shots to the 87 that the Timberwolves got. They almost were equal in the free throws. They actually lost the 3-point battle, but not by much. The turnover battle was them by a million. They win these margins, these points in the paint, these second chance points, the fast break points. That's and like you said before, super important. Closing quarters is
Yeah,
critical.
big time.
When you close a quarter strong and then you start that next quarter strong, though that little stretch is so debilitating. That's where big leads are born. And OKC does it better than anybody right now.
Nope, they look pretty good. So let's switch gears to the Timberwolves coming up next, because I think they're more interesting to break down what went wrong in this game. And you and I are not worried about them, and we'll explain why. That's coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On NBA Game Night. Today's episode of Locked On NBA Game Night is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs full swing here, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, big momentum swings, and can't miss moments. So whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. And FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have even more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Look, there's a pretty big game tonight that was game one exciting between the Knicks and the Pacers. The New York Knicks are -6 in this one. If you think the Pacers have another comeback or just going to win outright, or the Knicks are going to ride some momentum into there, that -6 might be in play. What about $200 in bonus bets to add to the excitement if your first $5 bet wins? Because look, if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet, and if it wins, $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And thank you for making a Locked On NBA Game Night. I almost said Pelicans there. Your first listen today and every day. We are here 7 days a week, covering every single game across the association. And now for your second listen, go make it Locked On NBA Big Board. Maybe your team is not one of the final four teams in the playoffs. You're looking towards the draft. Who's your team going to take? Who are other prospects you've got to keep an eye on? For your second listen, Locked On NBA Big Board, NBA draft expert Rafael Barlow reacts to every workout, interview, and rumor leading up to the NBA draft. Find Locked On NBA Big Board on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. All right, we're breaking down the Oklahoma City Thunder beating the Minnesota Timberwolves by 15, 118-103 here. John, I find the Timberwolves to be more interesting from this one. Like OKC is like, they are who we thought they were, right? They're really, really good. The Timberwolves, though, despite going down 0-2, and you and I were talking about this before we started recording, neither of us seem really worried about them. Why is that? Well,
I think that there were 4 or 5 different points here in this game where a couple things go a little differently. The Timberwolves had a chance to win this game. Like, even though they were down by 24 at one point, I feel like they got the lead down to single digits. They made their runs. They even without Julius Randle playing well, even with Mike Conley not giving them really much of anything, they still found a way to make certain runs. So that play that I was talking about, 4 minutes to go, and they force a turnover. They had momentum, and they were breaking out, and then they turned the ball over, and it was OKC made a great, I forget who it was that made the play, but it was also like a little rushed by Minnesota. I just feel like maybe at home, some of those momentum plays go their way. And I'm not saying that they definitely win these games, but the momentum swings, OKC found ways in the first 2 games to, make those plays to stop the runs. Do those shots fall for OKC? Do they make those plays on the road the same way? Does Minnesota find something at home? Like, does Julius Randle come out better? Does Naz Reid shoot better? He was 0 of 5 from 3 in this game. Does Dante DiVincenzo give you more? 8 points and a -27. Like, he was a key element to that whole preseason trade. Like, he's been good, but like, this was not a good game for him. Did those guys give you something more? So I feel like home court is going to be a huge player in this, which is not like I'm not worried about Minnesota necessarily, but I'm also very worried about Minnesota because you don't have home court, and you like OKC's advantage is spectacular at home. You're gonna have to figure out a way. I can see Minnesota coming back, winning game 3, even game 4, holding home court. And the question is, can you find that little thing that, whether it's confidence or a tweak that you're like, okay, there, or just making the champion or presumed champion bleed his own blood. You're like, okay, we figured something out, and take that to OKC and win one of these on the road. It's definitely an uphill battle. You don't expect OKC to lose 4 out of 5 times. But going back to Minnesota, things change. It can change in a hurry. So I still have faith in the Timberwolves that they can go home and take these 2 games.
Yeah, I think they can make this a series. Julius Randle going 2 of 11, 6 points, right? Not playing at all in the fourth quarter because he was struggling so much. You're on the road. Maybe going back home can have a big advantage when it comes to that, I think. And that's a really important thing, I think, to look at, right? Like, that's not the norm from him. He was good in the first half of game 1, too, and then struggled a little bit. So, like, we know what Julius Randle is capable of doing. The dude's a good player. Naz Reid, Nickeil Alexander-Walker in game 1 were just non-existent, and they started to get some things going in game 2. 17 points for Nickeil, 10 for Naz Reid. That bodes well for being back at home with a day's rest here and such, to be able to kind of play better and elevate them. And when you look at some of the 3-point shooting, like, they're not going to shoot 28.2% in every single game this series. Now, OKC didn't shoot well in this game either, so it's kind of a wash. But if they get some 3-point shots falling, it's an entirely different story. And the fact was, you got Anthony Edwards going in this game, and that's the most important thing to me, right? Like, game 1, he had 1 paint touch, essentially, is what it was, 1 shot at the rim, and that's not right. But they had him aggressive early, and if you can get some help for teammates, you can see, watching Edwards play and watching Shea play, you see the difference in just spacing and things like that, because Edwards' supporting cast is not stepping up in that moment. So if you get those guys going a little bit, all of a sudden the geometry of the court starts to change and maybe plays in the favor of the Timberwolves. So they've got to be feeling pretty good. Let's go over to Ben Beacon of Locked On Wolves for his take.
The Minnesota Timberwolves fall to the OKC Thunder in Game 2 of the conference finals by 15 points, trailing 2-0 in the series as it heads back to Minnesota for Game 3 on Saturday. I'm Ben Beacon, host of the Daily Locked On Wolves podcast. And there was a lot about this game that was similar to Game 1. Minnesota was in the game at halftime. The other day, it was a 4-point Minnesota lead at halftime in Game 1. This was an 8-point OKC lead, but it was still close-ish in the third quarter. And then in the third quarter, OKC ran away. The Wolves did fight back a little bit in the fourth to bring it to within a 10-point game after trailing by as many as 24. But ultimately, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was unstoppable. He had 15 free throw attempts in this game. Minnesota could not stop fouling him, frankly. And on the other end, Minnesota was not aggressive enough getting downhill, getting into the paint until it was really too little too late. Anthony Edwards had a decent performance. Julius Randle was a no-show. 6 points on 11 shots. Did not play at all in the fourth quarter in this game as Chris Finch elected to go small. And it was really Minnesota going small and playing at a more frenetic pace defensively that kept them at least within shouting distance in the fourth quarter. But ultimately, the more physical team won. We're going to break the whole thing down over at Locked On Wolves.
Yeah, he kind of sums up a lot of what we're talking about there. It's like it followed a similar script, but they were just better. Seems like they could be better in the next game.
Yeah. And look, Julius Randle played a big chunk of that third quarter. Mm-hmm. And, obviously it didn't go well. You sit him down to start the fourth quarter. There was a point where, so the talk is he didn't play in the fourth. He got benched in the fourth quarter. Well, he took his normal rest time in the fourth quarter. Then Nickeil Alexander-Walker comes in and starts making a difference. And so, you know what? You say, all right, we're gonna ride this. We're gonna ride this and see where it goes. And Finch probably tells you go to Julius and you say, hey, look, we're making a little bit of run here. I'm going to keep these guys in here. We're going to roll with this to see if we can follow this through. Get your rest. We need you. nothing's changed. We'll need you for game 3. Just get your rest. We're not gonna overtax you. And look, maybe your teammates rally here and whatever. So I'm not gonna make too much of Randall, like, oh my God, he was benched and blah blah blah, like all this craziness. No, like, I think Nickeil Alexander Walker was playing well. Any hyphenated Alexander was playing well in this game. So if I have to hear how these two guys are cousins again, like, I get it.
Cousins defending cousins regularly said on the broadcast.
Jeez, man. If we had a drinking game every time it was mentioned that they were cousins, we'd be blackout dry. I wouldn't even be doing the show. So it would.
Yeah, you would.
Well, I would, but
you would.
I probably would be making better points than I am right now. Bottom line is, I think I get why Randall didn't play in the fourth quarter. I think it's fine. I don't think it's any big deal.
Yeah, I mean, look, you just move on. He wasn't having a good game. They found something that was working. It's as simple as that. If that happens again, then there's maybe a bigger concern, but I don't know, whatever. Like, we're not concerned about him, I think. I'm not saying they're going to win the series, not going to say they're going to make it competitive, but you can see an avenue, a lane for them to be able to do so, and that's at least important, having some hope if you're a Timberwolves fan right now.
Can I ask you a real or fake about Lou Dort after the break?
Oh, yes. I don't even know what it is, and I'm excited. That's coming up here next on Locked On NBA Game Night. We're also going to get into the Denver Nuggets confirming David Adelman is their new head coach. That's here next in today's episode of Locked On NBA Game Night. And thank you for making a Locked On NBA Game Night your first listen today and every day. We're here 7 days a week covering every single playoff game in the association. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and join us on YouTube as well. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. For your second listen, I'm listening to Locked On Knicks and Locked On Pacers after that awesome game 1 and how much fun that was. Go get the reactions to everything there because that is just, I don't know, a fun series in my opinion here. All right, John.
Could have been a better series, in my opinion, but
you never know. All right, you ready? Are you ready?
Yeah.
Is this real or fake? Just ask John and Jake.
What you got for me?
Real or fake? Lou Dort is every NBA player's favorite player for bloodying Scott Foster in this game.
Kicking him and then hitting him in the face, it's so real.
Real, right? Like, he's getting
so real. Like, we don't need to spend that much time on this one. Every NBA player enjoyed that. You know who enjoyed it the most? Chris Paul, who was in the building.
Oh yeah.
He was there getting to watch it. All right, real or fake to you, John?
Yeah.
Lou Dort did that on purpose. He played with Chris Paul.
Yeah.
When Chris Paul was on the team. They were teammates. Did he do that on purpose for his old teammate, Chris Paul?
Yo, CB. Watch this. No, my official answer is no, he did not do it on purpose. But man, CP, watch this.
No one was happier than Chris Paul seeing that happen. I forget what the streak was, like 0 for 22, 0 for 27, something just ridiculous.
That's hilarious. I didn't even put the Chris Paul thing together.
He was there, man. He's the happiest person.
Oh my God. Yeah. So, okay. Real or fake? Chris Paul has
the third
telepathy and he used the Force or something. Like, Chris Paul has learned the ways of the Force and he got Lou Dort. He used Lou Dort just like Darth Vader style and just went whoosh.
I don't think he's retiring and is going to keep playing until he's probably 40 something. So if he's going to keep playing at the high level he's doing, there's got to be something else. So yeah, that's real. He's got the Force.
He's good.
Chris Paul's a Jedi. Or no, not a Jedi.
He's a Sith in this
yeah,
instance.
There we go. That's what you're saying there. I don't know. I think a Jedi would probably try and take out.
I think there are a few Jedi who'd be like, I'm all for good and all that stuff, but Scott Foster can eat it.
Yeah, exactly. There we go. Let us know what you think about Scott Foster in the comments down below on YouTube. So Chris Paul's pretty happy. You know who's also pretty happy? I'd assume David Adelman's pretty happy here now that he has been confirmed as the head coach of the Denver Nuggets. there's no surprise here.
No, this was
Like,
this
none.
was the obvious thing, and you hear about like it's interesting. I feel like there's like this not so thinly veiled animosity between Michael Malone and the Nuggets.
Yeah.
Obviously he's like, I got fired. So, the other day before the MVP announcement, when he was talking Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, he's like, well, that's why he's the MVP, and just like
Mhm.
said it definitively, not like that's why he's in contention. It's like he just basically was like, that's why. And he did that on purpose. Talking about people doing things on
Yes.
purpose. He did that on purpose. It makes you think like, okay, the relationship there with maybe Jokic and the team kind of crumbled. And then you hear how, the communication now is so great, and the way the relationships are so, you hear that kind of stuff and it's like, okay, we get it. And look, Malone would, he's not shy about like bashing his players in the media.
In the media, yep.
This is so funny. This is I love the way this is playing out, because fans love when somebody like Michael Malone was like, you know what? We sucked tonight. We didn't play a lick of defense and it cost us. But the players are not always fond of that. Like at some
Correct.
point, and listen, I cover the Celtics, Joe Mazzulla. You'll never hear him criticize his players. He's, no matter what he thinks, he's going to find, like, don't even pay attention to what he says post game sometimes, because he's not going to put his players out like that. So it's the opposite. And I think nowadays you kind of need somebody who's like that, because you can, for better or for worse, it wears on these players.
It does. This is like, it's not a surprise that they did this. The playoffs were good for them. They overachieved for what we thought they were going to be able to do. You went 3-0 in the regular season. I don't put much stock into that or anything like that. But when you hear Josh Kroenke, their owner, after their governor, after this says, quote, I think a lot of our answers are internal right now with where we are from a roster standpoint. We have guys locked into contracts. We're going into a coaching transition. And to be frank, that's a huge change, end quote. Oh, the Denver Nuggets are running it back is what that absolutely screams here. And it's like, well, we'll see if it'll be different with Adelman as head coach versus Mike Malone, and if that does a lot. And look, I think they need to do more. I don't think running it back for the Denver Nuggets is the best idea. But when you're trying to do something, right? This is the first step. I talk about this a lot on my show, and I think we've talked about it here, right? Like there's steps to triaging a bad situation. The first thing you always do is fire the head coach and bring in a new coach and see if that does something, because frankly, it's easier to do that than it is to make big changes to your roster. And given, the limits that they have there in Denver, it's hard to do that. So you're going to do this first. And look, they're probably looking at a team like Cleveland, who was like, we ran it back and we just had a different head coach, and look at us, despite the playoff disappointment that I think has a little more to do with injuries than other things. Like, this is the natural thing for them to do. And if it doesn't work next season, then you're going to see big shakeups coming to the Denver Nuggets.
That's fair. It's fair. Like, you look at Jokic and you see like, oh, is he going to be kind of done? Yeah. This kind of gives you that one extra year of,
it buys some time.
It definitely does. But it definitely buys some time. And like, buying some time is, now you got to do the work. Like, okay, we've bought ourselves a year. Now, what can we get for Michael Porter Jr.? Can we flip that into something that's, maybe a little bit more reliable? What do you do? Like, what's the next thing? What do you, how do you move on from Russell Westbrook or whatever? Like you have moves that you can make. You're in a tough spot, but like you start putting your head together and going, okay, everybody, what do we got? What are our ideas? And you try to figure out a way to make Jokic happy. And then, the same time, you're relying on Jokic to kind of get you through this year. So, look, I think the success they had at the end of the season, the fact that they could have won that series against OKC, that last game notwithstanding, they had opportunities.
Yeah.
They were seen as, if they had beaten the Thunder, that they would have beaten Minnesota, and they probably would beat whichever team comes out of the East at this point. They feel like we're right there. So doing this with a person who you can at least feel comfortable with, who's got the team's back, out in public, that's not saying like, God, we suck at defense, we need to play. Like we all know that Denver kind of sucks at defense right now. Like, I gotcha. You don't need to be advertising it everywhere, even if it's true. Guys hear it all the time. Like players are on social media. They get it all over the place. The last thing that they want to hear is like their head coach going out there and piling on. And it feels like they're piling on. You can say the players are sensitive or whatever, but they just don't want to hear it. They don't need to hear it. And I think this is a different kind of relationship that they're going to have with Adelman. So give it a shot. It's the best thing that they've got going right now.
It's like the only true move they can make that's easy, that's guaranteed to do something. What that something is, I don't know for sure yet. We might be having a similar conversation about the Denver Nuggets exactly a year from now. Who knows?
Who knows? I mean, we know that this summer is going to be a lot of big names moving. Maybe Jokic is part of next summer's big names moving, but as long as it's not part of this year's, Denver is okay.
There you go. That's like a great way to put it, right? Like this is the obvious move to make now, and then you figure it out. That's what buying the time does. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On NBA Game Night. Enjoy the Indiana Pacers and the New York Knicks on Friday night, and there will be another show covering that one on Fridays. I'm your co-host, Jake Madison, at Nola Jake on Twitter, and the host of the Locked On Pelicans podcast.
And I'm John Corrales, at John_Corrales on Twitter, and host of the Locked On Celtics podcast.
We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'll see y'all next week.